Ah, the Sega Genesis. Near and dear to my heart, so many timeless classics. Whether it's Golden Axe, whatever Shinobi you're playing, Ghouls and Ghosts, one of my favorites, Sonics. There's so many great games that came out on the Sega Genesis library. I've covered a lot of Sega Genesis on my channel, and I can tell you, it's got a great library and some amazing games. We're not here talking about any of those. We're talking about the worst of the worst bad games on the Sega Genesis. This was very difficult to narrow down 5. My personal 5 worst games on the console, licensed games I feel that represent the worst Sega Genesis offered. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing those games with you. You're going to have your worst 5, and I know it may differ from mine, and that's okay. We can still be friends. So you want to sit back, relax. You may want to grab some popcorn. Here we go. Street Smart was a late 80s arcade game from SNK. Not bad, not my favorite. A lot of fighting games can be classified into games before Street Fighter 2 and after. And there's going to be fans out there that enjoy these types of games. I like the 2-player co-op versus the computer, as I think that was a huge benefit of this arcade game. It had decent graphics, and in '91 there was a published port of this from Traco, and it is terrible. I absolutely hate this port of the game. It takes out the 2-player co-op versus the computer, which I think was one of the best versions of playing this game in the arcades. It does add some things where you can add bonus points after beating an opponent. There's even a wager system that was added to this where you can bet against yourself, and depending on how much money you have at the end of the beating the game, you get 3 different endings. It doesn't matter. This game only has 2 playable characters, which the arcade, it was an average arcade game, probably at best. And this is a totally inferior port that was unnecessary in '91. With Street Fighter 2 not out, I think, on consoles, but it was in the arcades. This is just an example of a game that shouldn't have been ported. Avoid this. Prior to this game, there was several decent Batman games on the Sega Genesis. So when I saw that Batman Forever was coming to the Sega Genesis, I was pretty excited, as it can't be bad, right? Batman Forever is an example of having a huge budget, having companies come together and taking what they thought was a good idea, Mortal Kombat graphics and gameplay, and merge it into a Batman action platformer. Graphic-wise, pretty impressive for Sega Genesis, but that's where it stops. The control is absolutely terrible. You have to solve complex riddles in this, but really what it comes down to is the gameplay just is not fun whatsoever. You're going to have repetitive enemies, and it just is not fun compared to the other previous Batman games, which on the Sega Genesis platform, many of them are excellent, above average. Even the original Batman game was just so great, but just it's overcomplicated to go up and down platforms using the grappling hook. The control scheme is just broken. And combined with some of the complex puzzle solving of this game, this is, in my opinion, one of the worst platformers on the console. It's just not fun whatsoever. And it's even worse that, it had a budget. It, could have been really great. An example of going with trending things and not being successful whatsoever. Another late release and huge budget. This game didn't even come to the States, and that's Rise of the Robots. This was a Mega Drive release. And boy, this is my pick for the worst fighting game on the console. And there's some other stinkers out there, and I'm sure you're going to, in the comments, let me know. Those other bad fighting games. Has a, like a CG introduction. Honestly, it hasn't aged well. I mean, it's impressive to have it on cartridge, but when it comes down to it, if the gameplay sucks, then that doesn't matter. The graphics don't matter. Again, another game with a trending graphics of the time, with that like CG rendered. I'm sure there's a specific name for it, but graphic-wise, it looks fine. But when it comes down to the gameplay, you have a short range of attacks, And it doesn't matter. If you don't adjust the time, which I adjust the time to 90, you don't have enough time typically to beat your enemies. Your enemies are going to, even on easy mode, are going to destroy you as their range and cheap hits and stuff. This is just not fun whatsoever. It doesn't matter what options and settings you put. This is a terrible fighting game and a good example of a huge overblown budget, but when it comes down to it, it's not fun whatsoever and a terrible game. Play anything else. Biggest disappointment to an offshoot of Eternal Champions is X-Perts. And if you're an Eternal Champions fan, avoid this. This is taking, characters from Eternal Champions and trying to do like a puzzle, adventure, platform combination. It's overly complicated. It's very difficult to determine at the beginning of the game what to do. Certain characters have certain missions that they need to do, and it's just really, really, really over confusing. The gameplay mechanics, the graphics look okay, kind of bland with colors. The characters are large on the screens, but it's just take everything great from Eternal Champions and ruin it. This is just a dreadful combination of gameplay mechanics combined that just don't work. This is not fun to play. It's frustrating. It's difficult to determine what to do next. Sometimes the computers that you have to interact with sometimes blend in with the background and you don't know if you can interact with them. Only fans of people that want to play truly dreadful games should play this. Everybody else, wow, avoid this. This was a wonderful Mac game, and it was ported to several other classic computers and home consoles. And this is Dark Castle, and it's just ruined. This game, by far, is probably my pick for the worst game on the Sega Genesis. Doesn't matter what level you play. Truly awful gameplay mechanics. It's too hard to attack. Your attack is weird because you throw out projectiles and you have to maneuver aiming, and it's so difficult to fire, move, and avoid. Hit detection is absolutely just dreadful in this game. You're going to die over and over again from cheap deaths. It's not based on any skill or anything. It is just a truly dreadfully programmed game version of this. Dark Castle so much better. Play any other port. Heck, even the CDI one. I don't know. Like, CDI one's pretty bad, but I don't know. Sega Genesis is up there for just a truly disgusting port of a game that could have been so much better. It just, for whatever reason, whoever programmed this and determined that this was the control setup for this, it doesn't work. And maybe they were under time pressure, restraints, or maybe limited resources, but holy cow, this game is dreadful when it comes to control. Graphic wise, I don't mind the graphics. Graphics are okay. Annoying sound effects over and over again. But, if you're good at playing this game, congrats. You're good at playing one of the worst Sega Genesis games, in my opinion. This is my pick for number one worst game on the console that was licensed and released. And one to forget. Don't play this. Play anything else. Those are my picks for the worst 5 games on the Sega Genesis library. What are yours? Put them in the comments below. Have you played any of these? Have you experienced how terrible these games are? I have enjoyed doing a bad games playlist, and I've done other consoles and computers as well, and you may want to check them out. The link is below to that playlist. And I look forward to doing several others of these, as it's kind of fun to take a game and to pick it apart and to really see, man, there's some truly terrible duds out there. But it is fun, like a bad movie, to kind of play through them and experience just how bad they are. Thank you so much for coming to my channel, as I'm appreciative of anybody who's viewing my videos. Over 1,000 videos over many years, and I look forward to doing many more. If you're new to the channel and you like what you see, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and clicking the bell, as I'm uploading content every week. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. Let's keep it positive. This is the Immortal John Hancock, and you have a good day.